Well, what's the crack, Mechwarriors? Today I'd like to share with you 3 suggestions that I have for Mechwarrior Online that I think are reasonably easy to implement while improving the game experience overall and ultimately benefiting both PGI and the community. The video description will have timestamps and titles of the 3 different points if you'd like to get right to a particular suggestion. My ideas when I was coming up with these points were just from my own observations from playing the game, and I wanted things that I felt were likely to be low enough in development hours required by PGI while having a pretty significant impact on the game. So alright, let's get started. Number 1. Fresh Mech XP bonus. Probably one of my biggest points of contention with the current MWO XP grind is that of fresh mechs. Which, I mean, the initially unfun experience with starting a mech from scratch and trying to get a basic amount of skill points under that mech's belt, along with the general feeling of procrastination that comes about as a result. I understand PGI has a vested interest in getting players to spend MC through things like converting a mech's XP into general XP, but I think there's a happy medium to be found here to encourage player retention, acquisition of additional mechs, and in the end, a healthier, happier player base. My suggestion would be similar to the cadet bonus already present in the game, but for a new mech and related to XP. The problem: initially grinding a mech to about 30 to 40% feels awful, in my opinion, with small incremental changes over a long time feeling kinda unsatisfying. It's not awful, that's maybe too strong of a word, but it's not a grind that I particularly enjoy engaging with. Mechs are punishing the play initially, in my opinion, which slows down XP accrual in the first place. You know, so your mech initially doesn't perform as well as it will in later, so you're kind of punished, but then that also slows down how much XP you're getting as a result of not playing as well. Solution: provide an XP bonus for the first 10 matches in that mech with a match score of over 150, each match equaling 1 skill point worth of XP. The match score limitation is to ensure players don't AFK, abuse the system, or something like that. This would allow for players, along with additional in-game XP, to get a reasonable amount of skill points a bit faster and leave a feeling of progression in the mech. I think it'd make starting the grind on a mech much more appealing and forgiving. It'd make it more rewarding to play that mech initially, with the earlier unskilled games feeling less unsatisfying with the additional XP, and it gets you invested in that mech much faster, making you more likely to see it through to mastery. For me, the most important aspect would be to stop me putting off grinding mechs, which I find happening quite often because I'm kind of a lazy person, you know, so that kind of translates into the game. If I'll get a mech that I really want, but then I'm just like, screw it, I only have a few games tonight, so I'm not going to try to, you know, grind that mech. I'm just going to play a mech that I've already got up to skill and feel happy enough with. So I think it would help like that. That faster initial XP grind would take a lot of the sting out of getting a new mech up to speed. I really can't see the system having much of a negative impact on the C-bill and XP economy. Bonus XP gained would be equal among players and separate to their gained XP from their in-game performance, with the 150 match score limit being the only requirement. This would avoid any conflicts with premium time, as far as I can tell. In fact, seeing as a lot of this was intended as a C-bill sync, players would spend a bit more C-bills at a faster rate initially, perhaps making premium time more appealing because of a positive incentive of wanting to keep up with this faster initial grind instead of a negative incentive of I want to speed up this slow grind. Overall, in the end, the C-bill sync doesn't change, it's just the XP arrives to the player a bit faster. I really think this is a win-win. I don't see any really major issues with it. I could be missing some flaws, so please do point out any counterpoints, as I'd love to see this idea fleshed out a bit more into something tangible and usable. All players, new and old, deal with the grinding of mechs, so this is a positive for everyone involved. Suggestion number 2. Solaris should be a regular event. Alright, so as Solaris currently stands, it's a constant ongoing game mode. Now this contradicts the idea of it being a tournament or a spectacle, but more importantly it causes a lack of agency and community engagement. Changing Solaris into a regular event rather than a constantly available game mode would address these issues and I think would add a lot to the experience. In my opinion, this change checks off a lot of boxes. I love checking off boxes. So anyway, it makes Solaris feel more like an actual spectacle or event. It makes it more like a tournament or competition. It gives more immediate feedback, and it allows for more community speculation / interest on the leaderboards, which is ultimately a very important part of what Solaris is about. I know PGI might be a bit reluctant to this idea, having invested a lot into this mode, and even going so far as rebranding the entire game around it, which I can understand from a marketing perspective, but it does leave the game in a bit of an odd space, as Solaris still is and never was the main focus. Now, this isn't to say get rid of Solaris, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I'm saying that I would like to see more of an emphasis on Solaris, but the current constant implementation maybe doesn't do it justice that it deserves, because I really enjoy the game mode. So anyway, I think this change would make Solaris more appreciated and engaging, elevating its status rather than making it kind of ignored as it is at the moment. Here's an example of how this could be implemented. Now, this is just one example that I come up with, so there's a lot of other ways this could be done. I'm sure a lot of other better ways that this could be done, but this is just an example of what I'm talking about. So here we go. Make Solaris into an event every 2 weeks for 5 days, from Thursday to Monday. This leaves it as a much more engaging proposition. In my opinion, 3-month cycles are just too long for wider player investment and interest. One season becomes 3 events over 6 weeks. The prizes could be cut in half, matching the relative length of a season right now. That leaves space for people to speculate on leaderboards, checking in after the event to see who is doing well, allowing for much healthier queues with more people and a lot of other benefits. Another aspect, each of the 3 events of a season could be different. So there's different ways to differentiate it, and that could be an ongoing thing with community suggestions taken into account or whatever else. One possibility, just an example I come up with, was certain divisions are fought out in each of the 3 weeks. So for example, Event 1 would be Divisions 7 to 5. Event 2, Divisions 4 to 3. Event 3, Divisions 2 to 1. This would allow for the current 7 divisions to not have to change. You don't need to break it down into less queues, while giving each a much more tangible meaning and sense of purpose, while not splitting player populations across all 7 at the one time. This would allow for much deeper engagement and interaction with both players and spectators. If you have all 7 queues going on all the time, it's just too much. You know, people can't keep up with that. While if it's a bit of a smaller thing, a bit more intense, and you're seeing most of the population in 1 or 2 divisions at a time, then you're going to see a lot more things come from that, and a lot more interesting builds with the mechs that are there. Another possible way of differentiating the 3 events in one season could be limiting map selection to only 3 of the 5 maps for each event. Each of the 3 events in the entire season would see only 3 of the maps, so that would kind of change the general skew of builds, knowing that these 3 maps are much more likely. And that's probably not a great example, but it was just another one that I thought of. But I'm sure there's a lot of other ways we could go with this for differentiating the 3 different events in one season idea. Divisions could still be balanced every 3 months, so that way it wouldn't require more dev time. In hindsight, once the system is organized and actually implemented, then the rewards would be the same, and the amount of work to maintain should be the same too. So the only thing would be the initial setting up of the systems. This benefit would be healthier queues, more player interaction, a stronger sense of Solaris being a spectacle or a tournament, and overall more good times. Good times, everyone. Number 3, and this is, in my opinion, the most important one. I think also probably the easiest to implement. I don't know, but I really doubt it would be difficult to implement. And really, this one would be so good. It would be it would be good. It wouldn't be bad, because it'd be good. Number 3, 2-person groups in QuickPlay. I love this game. I love my friends. I love my family. My family will never play MWO, but my friends might. My friends also have money and more friends. I tried to deny that they have more friends, but they do. Right, let me start that again. Getting my friends into this game is a nightmare. Alright, take a recent example. I had a friend that I tried to get into the game, so the logical conclusion would be, let's do some group queue drops together, because that's the current way that the game facilitates players playing together, right, is the group queue. I live in Korea. This is not an active time zone, okay? There are players on, but its group queue is, it's dead, okay? It's not to be You know, I'm not trying to be negative here, but it's just really not healthy. Cut to us sitting in group queue for like 20 minutes at a time easily. And we finally get a game, but my friend gets almost instantly killed because they're new. Okay, but they wanted to play with me, and I'm telling them this whole time it's not going to be a great experience, but you know, they wanted to play with me, so that's how we done it. This is not a good experience, and it's not a great way of getting them to learn how to play the game either. But this is an online game, and it's an online team game, so it makes sense that we would want to play together. This may be a PvP game, right? Player versus player, but more importantly, it's a team versus team game. Friends playing together and coordinating on a team is satisfying, and it's fun. It's addictive, right? It's so exciting, it's engaging, it's the best way to experience this game, for sure. And like most games, a good game is elevated massively once you're enjoying it with friends. However, right now, it's difficult. It's incredibly difficult to play with a friend. Sure, we can sync drop, but that's really inconsistent. Not to mention, that friend in particular is in tier 5. I'm tier 1, so we can't sync drop. So there's no option there. There's no way for us to play together. Problem: playing with friends is hard. Even when I actually have friends. Solution: add 2-mans to QuickPlay / solo queue, but not solo queue, because it's not solo, it's duo. It could be balanced so that if a team has a 2-man, then the other team must also have a 2-man. Tiers could also be averaged. So for example, a tier 1 and a tier 1 together, they're balanced as a tier 1. Tier 5 and a tier 1 together, they're balanced as a tier 3. I am good at math. Honestly, you could probably just even ignore the balancing once they're grouped together. You know, I don't know how the system works behind the scenes, but I'm pretty sure there would be an easy enough way to make it work. I have a hard time believing that this would have a significant impact on team balance and gameplay. I do not think it would break the game. 2-person groups are already too small for group queue. I really don't think that they would be like destroying other teams with the 2 people coordinating, okay? Especially if it's you know, a new player and a mature player. Anyway, what benefits would this bring to the game? This is possibly the easiest, most impactful and immediate form of new player retention. It's a no-brainer. Really, this would be so good for player retention. I can't think of anything else that would be more likely to get my friends to play the game and to stay playing the game. As a regular player of this game, that just makes so much sense that I would be someone that would bring in new people, my friends, and build up a community. But the way the game works right now, it just doesn't facilitate it. It makes it really difficult. I just kind of have to hope that my friend gets interested on their own. I can't help them out. I can't play with them properly. It's not good. I would be able to keep on so many of my friends by spending time with them in-game, helping them get started and actually having fun with them. Once they got the swing of it, they'd be dropping by themselves and inviting other friends that they could mentor eventually. In my opinion, this really would be the most beneficial change that PGI could make to the game. I know for a fact I would be gifting some of my friends premium time within the next week of that change coming into the game. I'd be convincing a lot of people to try and join me. I've had friends really like the game, but without being able to realistically play together, it just becomes too much for them to continue. For me, I know previous experience with Mechwarrior and a love of Battletech helped me to get into the game, but my friends don't have that foundation. That said, they could develop a strong passion for the IP when that barrier to entry is lowered by teaming up with a friend. So those are my 3 suggested changes. I have another 3 coming up in another video soon, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see that. I'm also working on a weapon sound mod at the moment, so expect that in January or so. And let me know your thoughts on these suggestions. If anyone at PGI is watching this, you know, I'm sure you've probably tossed around these ideas at some point. So I'm hoping maybe just this might open up the dialogue about some of these things again. And I was trying to think specifically of things that would require the least amount of development hours for the maximum amount of impact. I really think these 3 things would be a huge benefit to the game. So yeah, let me know what you think. Take care, guys.